The smell hit me first, this god-awful, coppery stench that just clung to everything. I was on my rooftop, in what used to be a pretty decent neighborhood in Chicago, just trying to catch my breath. The sirens had stopped days ago. Days. And then the screaming started. Not like a fight, you know. This was a primal, guttural kind of noise, like something being ripped apart. I remember peeking over the edge of my building, and that's when I saw it. Down on the street, where the hot dog stand used to be, there were people. But not people. They were shuffling, groaning, their eyes milky and vacant. And they were eating. Eating each other. A woman, her dress ripped, was gnawing on someone's arm, blood splattered all over her face. It was so brutal, so raw, that my first thought wasn't even fear, it was just this deep, sickening disbelief. This couldn't be real. This was a movie. Except the movie was happening right outside my window. Then one of them looked up. Its head snapped towards my building, and even from that distance, I could see the hunger, this insatiable, terrifying hunger. It started to lurch forward, and more followed. The groans turned into this horrible, ragged chorus. My stomach churned, and I stumbled back inside, slamming the door shut, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. Every creak of the building, every distant moan, sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. I was alone. Utterly alone. The next few days were a blur of rationing what little food I had, listening to the sounds of the city dying. The constant gnawing, the occasional burst of desperate yelling followed by that same awful silence. I tried the radio, but it was just static. No one was coming. No one was even talking. My thoughts raced, a chaotic mess of what-ifs and how-tos. Do I try to find others? Do I just barricade myself in here until what? I found a backpack and started stuffing it with anything useful. Canned goods, a first aid kit, a sturdy pipe I found in the basement. The silence was almost worse than the noise sometimes. It allowed the fear to fester, to grow in the dark corners of my mind. What if the infection was airborne? What if I already had it? I checked my reflection a dozen times, paranoid about a headache, a cough. The city, once a place of endless possibility, had become a tomb. And I was trapped inside. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make a wrong move. And then, the hunger started to gnaw at me, not the flesh-eating kind, but the gnawing hunger for food, for safety, for just one familiar face in this nightmare. Thinking about it now, staring at this empty can of beans, what would you do? Would you risk going out there, hoping to find other survivors, or would you hunker down and hope for the best? It's a question that's kept me awake more nights than I care to admit. I'm just trying to get this down, this record. If anyone ever finds this, if anyone ever finds me, I guess this is it. My last message. Please, if you're out there, subscribe if you're watching this, hit that like button. Maybe, just maybe, someone can learn from my mistakes. Or maybe someone will know I was here. The dust settled, coating everything in a fine, gritty layer. We'd lost a few more people in the last push. Can't dwell on it. Gotta keep moving. We found a new water source, a small trickle seeping from a rock face. It's not much, but it's something. Enough to get by for a few more days, maybe. Rations are running low, though. The scouts haven't found anything promising, just more of the same desolation. The sky is a permanent, sickly yellow, and the air burns your lungs if you breathe too deep. We had to abandon the old settlement. Raiders hit us hard. They were organized, better equipped. We fought back, of course, but it wasn't enough. Lost too many. The survivors scattered, and I managed to gather a small group. We're heading north, towards what used to be the mountains. Rumors say there might be pockets of untouched land up there, places the blight hasn't reached. It's a long shot, a desperate hope, but what else do we have? The journey is brutal. Every step is a struggle. The ground is cracked and dry, and the few plants that survive are twisted and thorny. We're constantly on edge, listening for any sign of danger. Not just from other desperate people, but from whatever this sickness is that's plaguing the land. It mutates things, makes them unpredictable. We saw a herd of what used to be deer, but their hides were leathery and scarred, and their eyes were vacant, filled with a strange hunger. We gave them a wide berth. We're making slow progress. Some of the younger ones are starting to falter. Dehydration is a constant threat. I've been rationing my own water, giving it to those who need it most. Sleep offers little respite. The nightmares are relentless, filled with the faces of those we've lost. But I can't let despair win. Not yet. Not as long as there's still a chance. We're getting closer to the foothills. The air feels a little cleaner, the yellow haze a bit less oppressive. But the silence is unnerving. No birds, no insects. Just the wind whistling through the skeletal remains of trees. We found a cave system yesterday. It's dry and offers some protection from the elements. We'll rest here for a day, try to recover some strength. The scouts are out again, searching for any signs of life, any indication that the rumors might be true. I can feel the weight of everyone's expectations on my shoulders. I just hope I can lead us to something better. Or at least, to an end that isn't just more suffering. So, here I am, Elias, hunkered down in what used to be a quaint little diner on the outskirts of Oakhaven. Remember Oakhaven? Used to have the best cherry pie. Now it's just a charnel house. I was grabbing a coffee, minding my own business, when it started. Not a bang, not a boom, but a whimper that turned into a scream. Then the screams multiplied. People on the street, faces contorted, gnawing on each other like starving dogs. A woman I'd seen buying groceries an hour before, her eyes milky white, her jaw hanging loose, was tearing into a man who just minutes ago was probably asking for directions. It was so visceral. Like watching a nature documentary about predators, except the predators were the people I used to nod to every morning. My first instinct wasn't heroism. It was raw, gut-wrenching terror. I saw a kid, no older than 7, his little t-shirt ripped, lunging at his own mother, who was already, changed. She was on all fours, making this guttural noise that will forever be etched into my brain. It was the sound of something fundamentally broken. I didn't think, I just bolted. Ran like a scalded cat, slamming the diner door shut, the screams echoing behind me. The smell, oh God, the smell. Metallic and foul, like a slaughterhouse left to rot in the sun. Inside, it was chaos. Patrons screaming, trying to barricade themselves in. A waitress, bless her soul, was trying to herd people towards the back exit, but then a guy, a burly dude who'd been arguing about his bill, stumbled in, his eyes glazed, a chunk of flesh missing from his arm, already turning gray and oozing. He just lunged. And it was over. The speed at which it happened, the complete lack of humanity in his movements, was what really broke something inside me. This wasn't just sickness, it was an inversion. A horrifying parody of life. I managed to slip out the back, through the kitchen. The cook, bless him too, was still trying to hold the door shut from the inside, a meat cleaver in his trembling hands. I saw the fear in his eyes, mirroring my own. I just kept running, not knowing where I was going, just away from the noise, the gnashing, the desperate, inhuman sounds. The sheer, overwhelming despair of seeing a world you thought you knew literally devour itself. It's a chilling realization that the people you've known, loved, even just tolerated, can become something else entirely, something that sees you as nothing more than sustenance. Every shadow now holds a threat, every closed door a potential horror. The silence is almost worse, because it's a silence that's always waiting to be broken by that familiar, terrible sound. The biting wind whipped Anya's hair across her face, stinging her eyes. She pulled her worn coat tighter, the the thin fabric doing little to ward off the persistent chill that seemed to seep from the very ground. The usual cacophony of the city was gone, replaced by an unsettling quiet, punctuated only by the distant, mournful cry of some unseen creature. She scanned the deserted street, her gaze darting from one darkened storefront to another. Each building was a potential trap, each alleyway a black maw. She clutched the small, tarnished locket in her pocket, its cool metal a small comfort against the clammy sweat on her palm. It was the only thing she had left of her brother, a constant reminder of what she was fighting for, and of what she had lost. The thought sent a fresh wave of dread through her, but she pushed it down. Dwelling on it wouldn't help. She needed to find supplies, and more importantly, she needed to find others. The isolation was as dangerous as the infected. A flicker of movement at the far end of the street caught her eye. Her heart leaped into her throat. She froze, every muscle tensed, ready to bolt. It was just a stray dog, its ribs showing, sniffing at a pile of refuse. Anya let out a shaky breath. False alarm. But the encounter left her more on edge than before. The world had gone mad, and even the animals seemed to carry a desperation she hadn't seen before. She continued her cautious advance, her boots crunching on scattered debris. A shattered windowpane glittered in the dim light, a jagged reminder of the chaos that had erupted. Anya remembered the screams, the sheer terror that had ripped through the night. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been days. Days that had stretched into an eternity of fear and uncertainty. She spotted a small convenience store, its door slightly ajar. A sign that read "Open" was still miraculously hanging in the window, though the glass was cracked. It was a long shot, but she had to check. Anything was better than nothing. She approached slowly, listening intently. No sounds of movement from within. She pushed the door open further, a low groan of protesting hinges echoing in the emptiness. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of dust and something faintly metallic. Shelves were overturned, and scattered goods lay strewn across the floor. It was clear someone had been here before, and they hadn't been gentle. Anya's eyes swept over the chaos, searching for anything useful. A few cans of preserved food were scattered near the back, miraculously unopened. She quickly scooped them into her bag, along with a half-empty bottle of water she found behind the counter. As she turned to leave, a glint of metal on the floor caught her attention. It was a small, intricately carved wooden bird, its wings spread as if in flight. Anya picked it up. It was beautiful, a stark contrast to the ugliness of her surroundings. She wondered who had dropped it, and what had happened to them. A pang of empathy, a familiar ache, tightened her chest. The world was full of lost stories, of people who had simply disappeared. She tucked the bird carefully into her pocket alongside the locket, a silent tribute to another unknown soul. Anya continued to walk, the small wooden bird a comforting weight in her pocket. She passed more derelict buildings, their windows like vacant eyes staring out at the desolate landscape. The air was thick with dust and the faint, metallic tang of decay. She saw no one, heard no sounds beyond the crunch of debris under her worn boots. It was a city that had exhaled its last breath long ago, leaving only a skeletal remains. She kept moving, driven by a quiet persistence, an instinct to simply keep going, to find something, anything, other than this emptiness. She came to a wider street, once likely a main thoroughfare, now choked with overturned vehicles and the remnants of whatever had brought this place to ruin. A faded banner, torn and flapping feebly in the unseen breeze, still clung to a lamppost. The words were illegible, lost to time and the elements. Anya paused, looking up at the skeletal structures that pierced the sky. She felt a sense of profound isolation, a feeling that had become a constant companion. Yet, amidst the desolation, she also felt a flicker of something else, a stubborn refusal to succumb to the hopelessness that permeated the very fabric of the city. Further on, a splash of color caught her eye. It was a patch of wildflowers, impossibly vibrant, growing defiantly from a crack in the pavement. Reds, blues, and yellows, a miniature rebellion against the muted tones of ruin. Anya knelt, her fingers brushing against a delicate petal. It was a small thing, easily overlooked, but it was alive. It represented a continuation, a testament to life's tenacious grip. She stood, feeling a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet determination to keep searching, to keep hoping for signs of life, for answers, for a different kind of story. The wooden bird in her pocket felt warmer, as if it, too, recognized the resilience in those small, bright blooms. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long, distorted shadows, Anya reached what looked like the edge of the city. Beyond it lay rolling hills, still veiled in a hazy, undetermined light. She could see the faint outline of distant mountains. It was an unknown territory, but it represented a departure from the suffocating confines of the dead city. She took a deep breath, the air here carrying a cleaner scent, tinged with the promise of something new. She looked back one last time at the silent, crumbling structures. They held their own stories, lost and perhaps forgotten, but she carried a piece of that lost world with her, in the form of the wooden bird and the locket. Now, it was time to turn towards the horizon, towards whatever lay beyond the silence. Okay, here's the next part of the story, picking up where we left off. The silence wasn't peaceful, not like it used to be. It was the kind of quiet that screamed, the kind that made your skin crawl. Maria walked for what felt like hours, the sun beating down relentlessly. She'd managed to find a small stream a few miles back, drinking greedily and splashing the cool water on her face. Her throat was still raw from the dust and the screaming. She clutched the wooden bird tighter, its smooth surface a small comfort. The locket around her neck felt heavy, a constant reminder of what she'd lost, what everyone had lost. As she rounded a bend in a cracked asphalt road, the smell hit her first. It was a coppery, metallic stench, thick and cloying, mixed with something putrid. Her stomach lurched. She'd smelled it before, in the city, but never this concentrated. Cautiously, she crept forward, peering through a thicket of overgrown bushes. A gas station. Or what was left of one. The pumps were mangled, the windows shattered. And then she saw them. At first, she thought it was just a few people scavenging, arguing. But the way they moved, jerky, unnatural. One of them, a woman whose face was a mask of torn flesh and vacant eyes, was hunched over something on the ground. The something was a man, or what had been a man, writhing and gurgling. And the woman, she was tearing at him, not with desperation, but with a chilling, methodical hunger. Another figure, a hulking man missing an arm, shambled towards the scene, his jaw hanging open, a guttural moan escaping his throat. He wasn't interested in scavenging. He was interested in the meal. Maria's breath hitched. She felt a cold dread wash over her, a paralysis that held her rooted to the spot. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. She saw more of them, shambling out from behind overturned cars, drawn by the sounds, or perhaps just by an instinct she couldn't comprehend. They were a grotesque parody of humanity, their bodies twisted, their movements violent and uncoordinated, yet somehow terrifyingly focused on their ghastly task. Their eyes, where they still had them, were milky white or bloodshot, devoid of any thought, any soul. Just consumption. The sheer brutality of it, the utter lack of remorse or even recognition of what they were doing, was more horrifying than any fear she'd ever imagined. It was the end of everything familiar, the complete annihilation of what it meant to be human. The man on the ground let out a final, choked gasp, and then the woman's tearing became more frenzied. Maria finally broke free from her trance, a silent scream trapped in her throat. She stumbled backward, tripping on a root, nearly falling. The sound, however faint, seemed to echo in the unnatural stillness. She scrambled to her feet, adrenaline coursing through her veins, and ran. She ran without looking back, the image of that gas station seared into her mind, the raw, animalistic hunger of those creatures a chilling testament to a world irrevocably broken. The sun was starting to dip lower, casting long, ominous shadows, and the road ahead felt even more daunting now. She kept moving, her lungs burning, legs aching, but she couldn't stop. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a fresh wave of panic through her. The silence that had settled after the initial noise was almost worse, a heavy blanket that felt like it was pressing down on her. She risked a glance over her shoulder, but saw nothing but the deepening twilight behind her. The road stretched out, a ribbon of cracked asphalt disappearing into the encroaching darkness. She needed shelter, and fast. The thought of another night exposed, vulnerable, was almost as terrifying as what she'd seen at the gas station. She scanned the sides of the road, searching for anything that looked like it could offer protection. A dense patch of woods to her left seemed to swallow the last vestiges of daylight. To her right, the land sloped away into a shallow ravine, overgrown with thorny bushes. Neither was ideal, but she couldn't stay on the open road. Her eyes caught something, a faint glimmer of artificial light through the trees ahead. It was a long shot, a sliver of hope in the overwhelming gloom, but it was enough to change her direction. Pushing through the undergrowth was slow, painful work. Branches whipped at her face and arms, and the ground was uneven, littered with fallen leaves and unseen obstacles. The faint light grew stronger as she got closer, resolving itself into the warm, inviting glow of a window. It looked like a small cabin, nestled deep within the trees. Relief washed over her, a fragile thing that threatened to crumble with every step. She approached cautiously, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The cabin was small, made of rough-hewn logs, with a single, square window glowing invitingly. Smoke curled lazily from a stone chimney. It seemed too good to be true. Had someone survived? Was there a chance for normalcy, for human contact? She called out, her voice raspy and weak, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence answered her. She waited, straining her ears, but heard nothing from within. Hesitantly, she reached out and pushed the door. It creaked open, revealing a simple, sparsely furnished room. A fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. But the room was empty. She stepped inside, the warmth from the fire a welcome sensation against her chilled skin. It was a small dwelling, really, just a main room with a rough-hewn table and a couple of stools. A straw-filled mattress lay in one corner. The air smelled of wood smoke and something faintly herbal, like dried leaves. It was a stark contrast to the suffocating silence and decay she had grown accustomed to. Hope, a feeling she'd nearly forgotten, flickered in her chest. Someone had been here, and recently. The fire, though still burning, was low, suggesting a recent departure. She scanned the room again, looking for any clue, any sign of the inhabitant. On the table, a half-eaten bowl of what looked like stew sat next to a crude wooden spoon. The stew had gone cold, but it was undeniably food. Her stomach rumbled, a painful reminder of her own prolonged hunger. She cautiously approached the table, her eyes fixed on the bowl. It was a small miracle, a sign that life persisted beyond her solitary struggle. She picked up the spoon, hesitated for a moment, then scooped a small amount of the stew. It was bland, mostly root vegetables and some kind of tough, stringy meat, but it was sustenance. As she ate, she kept listening, straining to hear any sound from outside or any movement within the unseen parts of this small structure. There was nothing. The silence, once a source of dread, now felt pregnant with mystery. Who had left this for her? And more importantly, where had they gone? After finishing the meager meal, she felt a small surge of energy. She looked around for any weapons, any way to defend herself if whoever made this place was hostile. She found nothing obvious, just the basic necessities of survival. She checked the door again. It was sturdy, made of thick planks. She then moved to the single window, covered with a thick, greased hide. Peering through it, she saw only the familiar, desolate landscape stretching out under a pale sky. No movement, no other signs of habitation. She sat on one of the stools, her mind racing. This wasn't a trap, not in the way she had feared. It felt like an offering. But why? The fire continued to dwindle, and the shadows grew longer. The thought of the unknown person who had provided this small comfort both reassured and unsettled her. She couldn't stay here indefinitely, waiting. The world outside was still dangerous, even if this small room offered temporary respite. She needed to know who was out there, if anyone else was like her, surviving in this ruined world. She stood up, her resolve hardening. She would not be a passive recipient of charity. She would seek out the source of this kindness, or at least understand the intent behind it. The door beckoned, and with a deep breath, she turned the handle, ready to face whatever lay beyond. Thank you for joining me on this journey. As the door creaked open, revealing a world irrevocably changed, remember that preparedness is not just about surviving the immediate threat, but about building resilience for the long haul. Always have a plan, a go-bag packed with essentials, and knowledge of basic survival skills. Think about water purification methods, how to start a fire without matches, and basic first aid. These are invaluable assets when the usual infrastructure fails. The first few steps outside the sanctuary were tentative. The air, thick with the scent of decay and something subtly metallic, pricked at her senses. She saw remnants of lives abruptly interrupted, overturned vehicles, scattered belongings, and the chilling stillness that spoke volumes. It was a stark reminder of how quickly the familiar can vanish, leaving behind an alien landscape. The kindness of the person who had left the supplies was a flicker of hope in this desolate panorama. Was it a lone survivor, a hidden community, or something else entirely? The uncertainty was a heavy cloak, but it also fueled a desperate curiosity. She moved with a newfound caution, her eyes scanning every shadow, every broken window. The silence was punctuated only by the creak of her own movements and the distant, unsettling groan of collapsing structures. Every rustle of debris made her heart leap, a primal instinct honed by the sudden shift in reality. She remembered the stories whispered in hushed tones, tales of those who succumbed to panic, making fatal errors in their haste. It reinforced the critical importance of remaining calm, even when faced with the unimaginable. A clear head is your most potent weapon against despair. Her immediate goal was to find a vantage point, somewhere to observe without being observed. The crumbling remains of what looked like a clock tower loomed in the distance. It was a daunting climb, but the potential for a wider view outweighed the risks. Each shard of glass and twisted metal she navigated was a testament to the world that was and the precariousness of her present. The need to understand, to connect, to find out if humanity's thread still held, drove her forward. This wasn't just about personal survival anymore, it was about the possibility of rebuilding, of finding others who had weathered the storm. As she ascended, the sheer scale of the devastation became more apparent. Entire city blocks lay in ruins, a testament to the ferocity of whatever had swept through. Yet, amidst the destruction, she also saw signs of nature's persistent reclaiming, tenacious vines creeping up brickwork, birds tentatively returning to shattered trees. It was a poignant duality, a constant reminder that even in the face of overwhelming loss, life finds a way. Please consider subscribing for more stories and insights into navigating challenging circumstances. Your thoughts and experiences are invaluable, so please share them in the comments below. What would you do in a situation like this? What survival tips do you swear by? Let's build a community of preparedness together.